how are you? It's good to be together again and continue to dig in and look at some of these issues and things that hinder the growth of our marriages. Last time we were together, I looked at how we can navigate our marriage in this difficult environment. And we looked at the first thing was to embrace realistic expectations. The second thing we looked at was to clarify priorities. What is the vision you live for? What are the values that you hold as a couple? Trust, faithfulness. What are the values? And how do you avoid compromise? Yeah. So clarify your priorities. Now, the third thing I want to look at today, how to navigate your marriage in this difficult environment, is to consider the big picture approach. Consider the big picture approach. The issue here is, from the big picture, marriage was created by God, big picture. And as image bearers of God, we bear the image of God. He says he made us in his own image. Then God created the institution of marriage and gave it a certain foundation upon which to relate and to grow. So then we ask ourselves, if God is the standard, the one we bear his image, I am made in the image of God, my wife is made in the image of God, so are our children. What is our marriage philosophy? How do we relate? What do we build our marriage on? Remember when we talked about Christ, and we said that you love as Christ loves the church. We were taking the spiritual principles and living them down here in this relationship, living our daily relationship using spiritual principles. So marriage becomes a we affair as opposed to an I affair. Remember, the Bible says, God says, let us create. In essence, God was referring to the Godhead, and we are created within, by the Godhead. So we copy, or we live our marriage life as we embrace that connectedness that is in the Godhead. Because you remember, a Christian marriage is symbolic to the relationship between Christ and the church. So the way Christ loves the church, Christ and the bride, husband and wife. So the way we spiritually and even naturally nurture each other and grow each other is a great reflection of how Christ grows the church. So marriage becomes a role model to the world about how Christ loves the church. So we model the love of God, we model the ways of God in this earthly relationship. Now, that's why God desires that there be no dysfunctions in the way we relate with each other. In Genesis chapter 3, Eve is tempted by the serpent, and the serpent says, hey, here's the fruit, come on, eat of this fruit. And there is an exchange of words there between Eve and the serpent. And Eve ends up taking the fruit and eats. Most people don't realize and ask the question, did Eve know that God said, let's not eat? Do not eat of this fruit from this tree. Of course he did, because he alludes to that in her argument. But the truth of the matter is, where was the man when the wife was tempted? Interestingly, in chapter 3, verse 5 to 6, Genesis, the man was right there, because after she ate, she gave to the man who also ate. But then, look at the blame game that comes after that. You see, how do we deal with the dysfunctions when we fail to live by what was said? You see, absence leaves a vacuum. And when there is a vacuum, it will be filled by something else. So because the man was present but absent in his role as the leader, the wife was tempted. She ate, she gave the man ate, because the man never showed leadership. The man ends up now blaming the wife. It is this woman you gave me. But really, it was not the problem of the woman, because he was there to remind the wife of the promise of God and what God had desired. So there needs to be clear role modeling of our roles in the relationship. So we need to identify, therefore, what are the gaps that make us continue to see the dysfunctions we see today in marriage. There is more single parents today than ever before. There's more battered wives today than ever before, battered men today in marriage more than ever before. There's many children who have no fathers more than ever before. What is happening with society? You see, we must identify the gaps, the fault lines that cause these dysfunctions to take place, and get back to the true love, because true love is other people centered, is other people focused. See, we need to be in the place where there is more cooperation and not manipulation. Role definition and the way we work with each other in marriage is not about manipulation. It's not about manipulation. It is about the ability to cooperate, to work together. You see, where there is unity, God commands a blessing. So when we work together as a team, we are able to achieve. We are able to grow each other and grow the relationship. So it's no longer my rights versus your rights. It's more so how do we live this life better to be a blessing to each other. So we can only get there because there is disclosure and exposure of what we feel. So remember, dysfunctions must be dealt with, and we only deal with them by, one, dealing with the identity crisis that we face in relationships, discovering our roles and how we model them, identifying the gaps, the fault lines that are there. Do we believe God, or do we believe the Bible, or do we believe culture? And then cooperating with each other and not manipulating the process, so that we are able to move together as one. And finally, just being in the place where there is constant disclosure and exposure of what we feel and how we would wish the relationship was conducted. You see, we have to redefine how we communicate when we disclose, when we do disclosure, or when we do the exposing of our feelings. You know, sometimes we can say a good thing in a very bad way. So we have to have wisdom on how we speak, how we talk. And finally, I think we need, in our exposing of our issues, there will be heat. There will be, I don't like what you said. So how do you manage the differences? See, dysfunctions are only dealt with better if we know how to deal with the gaps we met, the differences that came as we talked, as we exposed our issues, as we identified the gaps and wanted to seal them. We must know, how do we manage our differences? Yeah. It's not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We have to be committed to break the cycle of conflict. You see, we are called to be the light and the salt. We are called to be those who reconcile, not those who cause confusion and trouble. Yeah, I believe you have been blessed. So do remember that. And I pray that you are going to be a blessing to each other as you look at these things and really choose to say, okay, God, are there some dysfunctions in our relationship, and how do we deal with them? God bless you. See you next time.
Thank you again and again for watching Open Hearts. This is our weekly show trying to talk about relationships. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Please watch, please share, please subscribe, and you know what? This is going to be a great time. In the background, you can hear lovebirds, and you know what? It's all about love. It's all about relationships. God bless you.